So dangerous, the only response to our warship was to flee. Part 1. First Contact Commander Alan Whitfield stood at the viewing window of Earth Orbital Station Alpha, watching as workers in spacesuits made final adjustments to the massive ship docked below. The UES Invictus gleamed under the harsh lights, its dark hull absorbing the stars behind it. Alan had waited his entire military career for this moment. At 42, he was considered young for such an important command, but his record spoke for itself. 5 years patrolling the Mars colonies during the resource wars. 3 more as second in command of the Jupiter defense platform. Now he would captain humanity's first true interstellar warship. Quite the sight, isn't she? Admiral Susan Palmer joined him at the window. She was a short woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Yes, ma'am," Alan replied. "I still can't believe she's mine." "Don't get too comfortable, Commander. This mission is more than just a shakedown cruise." Susan handed him a tablet. "Our deep space array detected these signals 6 months ago. They're definitely artificial and coming from the Alpha Centauri system." Alan studied the data, patterns too regular to be natural phenomena. "First contact, potentially. Or first conflict." Susan's face hardened. "The Invictus isn't just an exploration vessel. Those experimental weapon systems aren't for show. Earth Council wants to make sure that if whoever sent these signals isn't friendly, we have the means to protect ourselves." Alan nodded. After the resource wars, humanity had unified under the Earth Council with one clear directive. Never again would humans fight each other when the stars held both promise and potential threats. The Invictus represented that philosophy. Reach out with one hand, keep a weapon ready in the other. Your crew is assembled and waiting. Launch is scheduled for 0600 tomorrow. Susan extended her hand. "Good luck, Commander. Make Earth proud." The next morning, Alan entered the bridge of the Invictus for the first time as her captain. The command center was a marvel of technology, holographic displays floating at each station. Captain on deck called Lieutenant Carol Martinez his tactical officer. The bridge crew stood at attention. "At ease," Alan said, moving to the captain's chair in the center. "Status report." Carol stepped forward. She was tall and athletic, with close-cropped black hair and a reputation for being the best tactical mind in the fleet. "All systems green, sir. Crew complement of 120 aboard and accounted for. Waiting on final launch clearance from Earth Control." "Very good, Lieutenant." Alan turned to the science station. "Dr. Nelson, how are our experimental systems looking?" Dr. Gregory Nelson looked up from his console. With his round glasses and perpetually distracted expression, he seemed more like a university professor than a military science officer. "The propulsion system is operating within expected parameters, Captain. The Alcubierre drive should get us to Alpha Centauri in under 3 weeks instead of the 4 years it would take with conventional engines." "And the weapons platform?" "The quantum disruptor is, well, it's something else." Gregory shook his head in wonder. "Based on theoretical physics that I'm still trying to fully understand. But it's stable and the simulations are promising." Alan nodded and turned to his chief engineer. "Ms. Daniels, your assessment?" Patricia Daniels was busy checking readings on her tablet. Her red hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and smudges of grease already marked her uniform despite the ship being brand new. "The engines are purring, Captain. Though I must say they're putting out energy readings that seem a bit odd." "Odd how?" Alan asked. "Nothing to worry about," Patricia assured him. "Just some harmonic resonances we didn't expect. Actually giving us about 5% more efficiency than the designs predicted." Alan made a mental note to follow up on that later. He turned to the final senior officer. "Mr. Wright, communications check?" Kevin Wright was the youngest of his command crew, barely 30 and with an almost supernatural ability with languages and communication systems. "All channels clear, Captain. We're linked to Earth Control and all internal systems are functioning at optimal levels." "Excellent." Alan settled into his chair and opened the ship-wide communication channel. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. We are about to embark on the most important mission in human history. Some of you know we're heading to Alpha Centauri to investigate signals of possible intelligent origin. What you may not know is that we're also carrying the hopes and fears of our entire species." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "The Invictus was built not just for exploration, but as a demonstration of human capability. We go in peace but prepared for any outcome. Every one of you was chosen because you're the best at what you do. I expect nothing less than excellence from each of you." Whitfield out. Alan closed the channel and nodded to Kevin. Open a channel to Earth Control. Channel open. Sir? Earth Control. This is UES Invictus requesting departure clearance. The response came immediately. Invictus, this is Earth Control. You are cleared for departure. Safe journey and Godspeed. Release docking clamps, Alan ordered. With a series of heavy clanks that reverberated through the hull, the massive docking arms that had held the Invictus in place retracted. The ship floated free for the first time. Thrusters at station keeping, Alan commanded. Take us out nice and easy, Helm. The helmsman, a young man named Frank Cooper, nodded. Aye, Captain. Thrusters engaged. The Invictus moved away from the orbital station with surprising grace for a vessel of its size. The ship was nearly half a kilometer in length, with a sleek profile designed both for aesthetics and stealth capabilities. As they cleared the safety perimeter, Alan felt a surge of pride. Set course for Alpha Centauri, he ordered. Prepare the Alcubierre drive. The bridge crew worked efficiently, setting up the complex calculations needed for the experimental faster-than-light travel. Captain, Gregory called from the science station, I'm picking up something unusual in the drive's power signature. Alan frowned. Define unusual, Doctor. The energy output is fluctuating, but not in a way that suggests malfunction. It's almost as if... Gregory trailed off, adjusting his glasses as he studied the readings more closely. It's resonating at frequencies that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of physics. Patricia joined him at the console. He's right, Captain. These readings, I've never seen anything like them, but the system seems stable, maybe even more efficient than we designed it to be. Is it safe to proceed? Alan asked. The two officers exchanged glances before Patricia nodded. Yes, sir. Whatever's happening, it's not negatively affecting the drive. Very well. Alan returned to his chair. Proceed with jump preparation. As the crew counted down to the first faster-than-light jump in human history, Alan couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of discovering something far more significant than alien signals. The Invictus hummed around him, power building in its experimental engines. Drive engaged in 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the viewport seemed to stretch and blur. A sensation like being gently pushed back into his seat washed over Alan as the Invictus broke the light barrier for the first time. They were on their way to Alpha Centauri, carrying humanity's flag to the stars, and perhaps into its first interstellar conflict. What none of them realized was that the strange energy signatures from their engine were already being detected by something waiting in the darkness between stars. Something that recognized the pattern all too well. So dangerous, the only response to our warship was to flee Part 2, Unexpected Power. 2 weeks into their journey to Alpha Centauri, the UES Invictus moved through the darkness of space with surprising speed. The experimental Alcubierre drive had performed beyond expectations, pushing the massive warship faster than any human vessel had ever traveled before. Captain Alan Whitfield sat in his private quarters reviewing the daily reports from his senior officers. The ship was running smoothly, but the strange energy readings from the propulsion system continued to puzzle the engineering team. A soft chime announced a visitor at his door. Enter, Alan called. Chief Engineer Patricia Daniels walked in, carrying a tablet and wearing a concerned expression. Captain, I need to show you something. Alan gestured to the chair across from him. What is it, Chief? Patricia sat down and placed her tablet on the desk between them. A complex graph of energy outputs flickered on the screen. These are the baseline readings for the Alcubierre drive that we took before launch. She swiped to another graph. And these are the current readings. Even to Alan's untrained eye, the difference was obvious. The second graph showed energy spikes nearly double the height of the original ones. The drive is pulling more power? He asked. No, that's the strange part. Patricia ran a hand through her red hair, a nervous habit Alan had noticed when she was working through a problem. It's generating more power, far more than it should be capable of based on the amount of fuel we're using. Alan frowned. Is it safe? As far as we can tell. The ship's AI is monitoring it constantly. Victor hasn't detected any instabilities, but... She hesitated. Captain, it's almost like the drive is feeding on something out here. Some form of energy we don't understand. Before Alan could respond, the ship's AI spoke through the room's communication system. Captain, Dr. Nelson requests your presence in the science lab. He says it's urgent. Alan and Patricia exchanged looks. Tell him we're on our way, Victor. They found Dr. Gregory Nelson hunched over a complex array of instruments in the main science lab. The usually composed scientist looked excited, his glasses slightly askew. Captain Chief, look at this. Gregory pointed to a display showing what looked like a wave pattern. The drive isn't just generating energy. It's creating a field around the ship that's interacting with what appears to be background radiation. What kind of radiation? Alan asked. That's just it. We don't have a classification for it. It's not on any spectrum we've cataloged. Gregory adjusted his glasses. But the really interesting part is that the ship is somehow absorbing this energy and converting it into usable power. Patricia moved closer to the display. That would explain the increased output readings. Exactly. Gregory nodded enthusiastically. It's as if the drive was designed to do this, but that's impossible. Nobody on Earth knows about this energy source. We couldn't have deliberately built the drive to harness it. Could it be dangerous? Alan asked the question that concerned him most. Not from what we can tell, Gregory replied. If anything, it's making us more efficient. At our current acceleration, we'll reach the Alpha Centauri system in 3 days rather than the projected 7. The next 3 days passed without incident. The crew settled into their routines, excitement building as they approached humanity's first contact with another star system. Lieutenant Carol Martinez ran daily drills with the security teams, ensuring they were prepared for any possible threat. Communications Officer Kevin Wright spent hours fine-tuning the translation algorithms that might help them understand any alien language they encountered. As they approached the edge of the Alpha Centauri system, Alan called a meeting of his senior staff in the ship's conference room. We'll be entering the system in approximately 6 hours, he began. Dr. Nelson, what can you tell us about what we might find? Gregory activated the room's holographic display, showing a map of the Alpha Centauri system. The signals we detected from Earth appear to be coming from the second planet orbiting Alpha Centauri A. Our scans suggest it's a rocky planet, slightly larger than Earth with an atmosphere that could potentially support life as we know it. Any signs of technology? Carol asked, her tactical mind already assessing potential threats. Nothing definitive yet, Gregory answered, but the signal patterns suggest a civilization at least as advanced as our own, perhaps more so. Mr. Wright, are we broadcasting our approach? Alan turned to his communications officer. Kevin nodded. Yes, Captain. Standard greeting package on all frequencies, basic mathematical sequences, simple language constructs, and information about Earth and humans. Nothing that would give away military capabilities or weaknesses. Good. Alan looked around the table at his officers. I want to be clear about our mission parameters. We are here to establish peaceful contact if possible. The Invictus's weapons are a last resort, not a first response. Lieutenant Martinez, ensure your security teams understand this. Carol nodded crisply. Yes, sir. Dismissed. Return to your stations and prepare for system entry. 4 hours later, Alan sat in the captain's chair on the bridge as the Invictus dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Alpha Centauri system. The main view screen showed a beautiful vista of stars, dominated by the bright primary star of Alpha Centauri A. Full sensor sweep, Alan ordered. Let's see what's out here. Gregory worked at his console, then looked up with surprise. Captain, I'm detecting multiple objects in motion near the 4th planet. Artificial structures. Definitely not natural. On screen, Alan commanded. The view screen shifted to show a magnified view of several small vessels moving around what appeared to be an asteroid field near the system's 4th planet. A gas giant similar to Jupiter. Mining operations? Patricia suggested. Seems likely, Gregory agreed. They appear to be extracting materials from the asteroids. Any response to our signals, Mr. Wright? Alan asked. Kevin frowned at his console. Nothing direct, Captain. But there's an increase in communications between the vessels. They've noticed us. Move us closer but maintain a respectful distance, Alan ordered the helmsman. Continue broadcasting our greeting package. As the Invictus moved deeper into the system, the alien vessels suddenly changed their behavior. Their movements became more erratic and they began to move away from their mining operation. Captain, Kevin called out, I'm picking up a transmission directed at us. It doesn't match any of our expected response patterns. The translation algorithm is struggling, but it seems cautionary in tone. They're warning us off? Alan raised an eyebrow. That would be my interpretation, sir, Kevin replied. Lieutenant Martinez, what's the status of our defensive systems? Alan asked. All systems operational, Captain, Carol reported. Shields are up at standard strength. Weapon systems are on standby but not armed. Let's run a diagnostic on the main cannon, Alan decided. Standard procedure when entering a new system. Nothing threatening, just a routine check. Carol nodded and began the process. As the diagnostic ran, one of the engineers reported an anomaly in the calibration system. A minor power surge caused a tiny discharge from the main cannon. Barely enough energy to be noticed under normal circumstances. But what happened next was anything but normal. The small energy pulse created a shockwave that rippled through space, striking a nearby asteroid and shattering it into thousands of pieces. The bridge crew fell silent, staring at the destruction caused by what should have been a negligible weapons discharge. What just happened? Alan demanded. Gregory was frantically checking his readings. Captain, the energy output from that discharge was at least 100 times what it should have been. It's the same phenomenon we've seen with the drive. The weapon systems are somehow amplifying their power by drawing on this unknown energy source. On the view screen, the alien vessels had stopped all activity. Then as one, they began to move rapidly away from the Invictus, accelerating to what must have been their maximum speed. They're running, Carol said quietly. Whatever they are, they're terrified of us. Alan watched the retreating vessels with a mixture of concern and wonder. They had come seeking first contact, hoping for peaceful communication with another species. Instead, they had accidentally demonstrated power that had sent the aliens fleeing in fear. Mr. Wright, he said finally, keep broadcasting our greeting. Make it clear that the weapons discharge was accidental. But as he gave the order, Alan couldn't help wondering what they had stumbled upon. The Invictus was far more dangerous than anyone on Earth had realized, and now an alien species had witnessed that power firsthand. So dangerous, the only response to our warship was to flee Part 3, the misunderstanding. Admiral Palmer is on the secure channel, Captain, Kevin Wright announced from his communications station. The bridge crew of the UES Invictus exchanged nervous glances. News of their unexpected weapon discharge and the fleeing alien vessels had been transmitted back to Earth hours ago. Alan Whitfield straightened his uniform and nodded. I'll take it in my ready room. He rose from the captain's chair and crossed the bridge, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Once inside the small office adjacent to the bridge, he activated the secure communication system. Admiral Susan Palmer's stern face appeared on the screen. Commander Whitfield, she began without preamble. Your report makes for interesting reading. An accidental weapons discharge that destroyed an asteroid and sent an alien mining fleet running for cover. Care to explain how that happened? Alan took a deep breath. We're still investigating, Admiral. Dr. Nelson believes the ship's systems are somehow drawing power from an unknown energy source in space. It's amplifying both our propulsion and weapons capabilities beyond their design specifications. Susan's expression remained neutral, but Alan detected a glint of interest in her eyes. And these aliens? What do we know about them? Very little, ma'am. We haven't established direct communication. They appear to be conducting mining operations in the asteroid belt. Their technology seems advanced, but their reaction to our weapons test suggests they may not be as militarily capable as we are. Or they recognized something about our ship that frightened them, Susan suggested. Either way, Commander, your orders remain unchanged. Establish contact if possible. Gather information about this species and determine if they represent a threat to Earth. And if they're running away from us, Alan asked. Then pursue and make contact, Susan said firmly. We need to understand why our presence caused such a reaction. And, Commander? Test those weapon systems again under controlled conditions. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Yes, Admiral, Alan replied. The communication ended and he sat for a moment considering his orders. They had come to make peaceful contact, but now they were being instructed to chase down aliens who clearly wanted nothing to do with them. With a sigh, he returned to the bridge. Lieutenant Martinez, set a pursuit course for those alien vessels. Mr. Wright, continue broadcasting our greeting message. Dr. Nelson, prepare a detailed analysis of that weapons discharge. I want to know exactly what happened and why. The officers acknowledged their orders and set to work. The Invictus smoothly accelerated, its experimental engines humming with power as it followed the path of the retreating alien ships. "Captain," Gregory called from his science station after several minutes. "I'm picking up unusual readings from the aliens' propulsion systems. They're pushing their engines beyond safe parameters. If they maintain this speed, they risk catastrophic failure." Alan frowned. "They're that desperate to get away from us?" "It appears so, sir," Gregory confirmed. "Helm, match their speed but don't overtake them. Let's not appear any more threatening than we already do." For 3 hours, the Invictus shadowed the alien vessels as they moved deeper into the Alpha Centauri system. Finally, the aliens began to slow down as they approached the second planet, the source of the signals Earth had detected. "They're entering orbit around the planet," Carol reported from Tactical. 5 vessels in total. Sensors are detecting significant artificial structures on the surface. "It appears to be a colony or outpost of some kind." "Life signs?" Alan asked. "Numerous, sir. The population appears to be concentrated in several large settlement areas." Alan considered their options. "Mr. Wright, any response to our communications?" "Nothing direct, Captain," Kevin replied. "But there's been a significant increase in transmissions between the surface and the vessels we've been following. They're definitely talking about us." Suddenly, Carol's console lit up with warning indicators. "Captain, 2 of the alien vessels are breaking off and moving to intercept us. Energy readings suggest they're powering up what might be weapons systems." "Shields to full," Alan ordered calmly. "But do not power up our weapons. Let's not escalate the situation." The alien vessels approached cautiously, maintaining what they must have considered a safe distance. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission directed at us," Kevin announced excitedly. "The translation algorithm is processing it now." After a moment, a distorted voice came through the bridge speakers. The words were stilted, as if the aliens were using a similar translation system to communicate. "Human vessel. Maintain position. No approach. Planet protected." Alan nodded to Kevin. "Open a channel." When Kevin gave him the signal, Alan spoke clearly. "This is Commander Alan Whitfield of the Earthship Invictus. We come in peace seeking friendly contact. The weapons discharge earlier was an accident. We mean you no harm." There was a long pause before the reply came. "Weapons. Too powerful. Like the old ones. Stay away." Before Alan could respond, one of the alien vessels fired what appeared to be a warning shot, an energy beam that passed several kilometers in front of the Invictus. "No change in shield status," Carol reported. "Their weapon doesn't even register as a threat." "The old ones?" Gregory mused aloud. "They think we're someone else." The alien vessels fired again, this time directly at the Invictus. The energy beam struck the shields but had little effect. "Shields holding at 98%, Carol reported. "Their weapons are barely making an impact." "Captain," Gregory called urgently. "The aliens are broadcasting a wideband distress signal. They're calling for reinforcements, claiming they're under attack by—" He paused, checking his translation. "By Void Walkers. I think that's what they're calling us." Alan made a quick decision. "We need to defuse this situation. Lieutenant Martinez, target one of the alien vessels with the lowest possible power setting on our main cannon. Just enough to disable their propulsion, not destroy them." Carol nodded and made the adjustments. "Target locked, Captain. Fire." Even at its lowest setting, the Invictus's main cannon released a beam of energy that lit up space around them. It struck one of the alien vessels, and immediately the ship's engines went dark. It began to drift, clearly disabled but otherwise intact. "The second vessel is retreating at maximum speed," Carol reported. "Captain," Kevin called from communications. "The translation of their distress call is coming through more clearly now. They're saying the Void Walkers have returned after centuries of absence. They're terrified." Alan stood from his chair. "Dr. Nelson, is that disabled ship safe to board?" Gregory checked his readings. "Yes, Captain. Their life support systems are still functioning. Their crew appears to be alive but may be injured. Lieutenant Martinez, prepare a boarding party. Full environmental suits and translators. No weapons unless absolutely necessary. I want to know who these aliens are and why they're so afraid of us." An hour later, Alan received the initial report from the boarding party. The aliens called themselves the Zorans, a spacefaring species that had colonized several planets in the Alpha Centauri system. They were humanoid but shorter than humans, with gray-blue skin and large, sensitive eyes adapted for their dimly lit homeworld. Most importantly, They were technologically advanced but had developed along different lines than humanity. Their weapons and propulsion systems were based on principles similar to Earth's, but centuries behind in terms of power and efficiency. What troubled Alan most was the information about the Void Walkers, what a mysterious species that had supposedly dominated this sector of space centuries ago before suddenly vanishing. The Zorans had records of the Void Walkers' devastating weapons and the destruction they had caused. And somehow they had mistaken the Invictus for a Void Walker vessel. Carol Martinez returned to the bridge after leading the boarding party. "Captain, there's something else. Dr. Nelson is examining their databanks now, but the Zorans claim they detected our ship's energy signature from light years away. They say it matches the pattern of Void Walker technology." Alan sat back in his chair, processing this information. Somehow, humanity's first interstellar warship had accidentally replicated the technology of a species that once terrorized this region of space. No wonder the Zorans had fled at the first sign of the Invictus's power. "What are your orders, sir?" Carol asked. Alan looked at the view screen where the disabled Zoran vessel floated silently. "We need to understand this connection. Have Dr. Nelson copy all the data he can find about these Void Walkers, and prepare to release the Zoran vessel once we've gathered what we need. It's time we had a proper conversation with the people of this system. So dangerous, the only response to our warship was to flee Part 4. The third species, the Invictus, hung in orbit around the second planet of Alpha Centauri, a world the Zorans called Talaris. After releasing the crew of the disabled vessel with assurances of peaceful intentions, Captain Alan Whitfield had negotiated a cautious meeting with the Zoran leadership. They had agreed to allow a small human delegation to visit the main settlement on the planet's surface. Alan stood in the shuttle bay with his chosen team, Dr. Gregory Nelson, Communications Officer Kevin Wright, and 2 security officers. "Remember," Alan told the group as they prepared to board the shuttle, "we're guests here. These people are terrified of us because they think we're something we're not. Our job is to convince them otherwise." The journey to the surface was brief. As they descended through the planet's atmosphere, they saw a landscape of rolling purple plains and shallow oceans that glimmered with an unusual greenish tint. The Zoran settlement was a sprawling complex of dome-shaped buildings clustered around a central structure that towered above the rest. The shuttle landed on a designated pad at the edge of the settlement. When the team stepped out, they were met by a delegation of Zorans. Up close, the aliens were even more striking than the images from the boarding party had suggested. They stood about 1.5 meters tall, with slender bodies and large, expressive eyes that blinked frequently in the bright sunlight. Their skin ranged from pale blue to deep indigo, with faint patterns that seemed to shift with their movements. One Zoran stepped forward, wearing an elaborate collar that must have signified leadership. "I am First Speaker Elian," the alien said through a translation device. "We welcome you to Talaris, though I must admit with great caution." Alan nodded respectfully. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I am Commander Alan Whitfield of the UES Invictus. We regret the misunderstanding that has occurred." The first speaker gestured toward the central building. "Please follow me. The council awaits." As they walked through the settlement, Alan noted the curious and fearful glances from the Zoran civilians. News of their arrival had clearly spread. The central building was even more impressive from the ground, with a transparent dome that revealed the sky above. Inside, a circular chamber held a ring of seated Zorans, all wearing collars similar to Elian's but less elaborate. "The High Council of Talaris," Elian announced. "They have many questions." An older Zoran with deep blue skin spoke first. "Your vessel bears the energy signature of the Void Walkers, yet you claim to be from a world called Earth, which we have no record of. Explain this contradiction." Alan looked to Gregory, who stepped forward with a tablet displaying data from their ship. "We've reviewed the information from your vessel's data banks," Gregory began. "The similarities between our ship's energy signature and that of the Void Walkers is surprising to us as well. Our technology was developed independently on Earth. We had no knowledge of the Void Walkers until yesterday." Another council member spoke up. "Impossible. The quantum resonance pattern is too similar to be coincidence. Your species must have had contact with Void Walker technology." Kevin Wright, who had been quietly working with his translation device, suddenly looked up with interest. "May I ask when the Void Walkers were last seen in this system?" A female Zoran with pale, almost white-blue skin answered. They vanished approximately 700 of your Earth years ago. For centuries before that, they dominated this sector of space, using their advanced technology to subjugate other species, including our ancestors. Then, without explanation, they disappeared. Many believed they had destroyed themselves through some technological catastrophe. Alan considered this information. 700 years ago on Earth would have been around the 14th century. Our civilization was still in a primitive state then, nowhere near capable of space travel. The council members conferred among themselves in their native language, too quick for the translation devices to keep up. Finally, Elian turned back to the humans. We have decided to share something with you. Please follow me. The first speaker led them deeper into the building, down a sloping corridor that took them underground. They entered a secure chamber that appeared to be a museum or archive. Display cases held various artifacts, and holographic displays showed star maps and historical scenes. This is our historical truth repository, Elian explained. Here we preserve evidence of our past, including our encounters with the Void Walkers. He guided them to a central display case containing what looked like a piece of twisted metal with strange symbols etched into its surface. This is a fragment of a Void Walker vessel that crashed on Talaris 900 years ago. Our scientists have studied it for centuries, but much of their technology remains beyond our understanding. Gregory leaned closer, his scientific curiosity obvious. May I scan it? After receiving permission, Gregory used his handheld scanner to analyze the fragment. His expression changed from curiosity to shock as he read the results. Captain, he said quietly, the molecular structure of this metal is unlike anything in our database but the symbols. He turned the scanner so Alan could see the screen. They bear a striking resemblance to certain prehistoric Earth writing systems. Alan stared at the comparison the scanner had made between the alien symbols and ancient Earth scripts. The similarities were undeniable. There's more, Elian said, moving to another display. This one showed a biological scan of what must have been a Void Walker. The image showed a humanoid figure, taller and more slender than a human but with recognizable features. This is the only complete biological record we have of a Void Walker. It was recovered from the crash site. Gregory scanned this display as well, his hands now trembling slightly. Captain, he whispered, the DNA structure. It's compatible with human DNA. Not identical, but far more similar than it should be for a species from another star system. Alan felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying what I think you're saying? Gregory nodded slowly. It's theoretically possible that the Void Walkers and humans share a common ancestor, or... He hesitated. Or that the Void Walkers somehow influenced human evolution. Kevin had been studying another display, one showing the path of the Void Walker ships when they had abandoned the sector. Captain, he called. According to these records, when the Void Walkers left, a significant number of their ships headed in the direction of our solar system. Alan turned to Elian. First speaker, we need to share all this information with our scientists on Earth. It could explain the connections between our technologies and why your people mistook us for the Void Walkers. Elian's large eyes blinked rapidly. There is one more thing you should see. He led them to a final display, showing images of planetary devastation, worlds with massive impact craters and ruined cities. The Void Walkers did not leave willingly. They were fleeing. Fleeing from what? Alan asked. We do not know, Elian admitted. Our ancestors recorded only that in their final transmissions, the Void Walkers spoke of a greater darkness approaching from the galactic core, something that even they, with all their power, feared. As they studied the displays, a young Zoran rushed into the chamber, approaching Elian with obvious urgency. They conversed briefly in their native language before Elian turned to the humans with an expression Alan was beginning to recognize as alarm. Our deep space detection grid has activated, Elian said. Multiple unknown vessels have entered the system. They are not Zoran designs, nor do they match your Invictus. Alan immediately activated his communicator. Whitfield to Invictus. Status report. Carol Martinez's voice came through clearly. Captain, we're tracking 3 vessels that just appeared at the edge of the system. They're moving toward Talaris at high speed. Their design is unlike anything in our database, but... She paused. Their energy signatures are remarkably similar to our own. Alan exchanged glances with Gregory. Voidwalkers? He asked quietly. Gregory nodded, his expression grave. It appears so. But why now, after 700 years? We need to return to the ship immediately, Alan told Elian. If these are indeed Voidwalkers, we may be able to communicate with them. As they hurried back to the shuttle, Kevin worked frantically on his tablet. Captain, I've been analyzing the Zoran records of Voidwalker communication frequencies. If these are the same species, we might be able to establish contact. Alan nodded grimly. Do it. But make sure the Invictus is at full combat readiness. We don't know if they're returning as friends or conquerors. So dangerous, the only response to our warship was to flee Part 5. Humanity's true heritage Alan Whitfield and his away team rushed back to the Invictus, their shuttle pushing its engines to the limit. The three unknown vessels were approaching Talaris rapidly, their sleek, elongated shapes growing larger on the view screen as the human team returned to their ship. Once aboard, Alan sprinted to the bridge with Gregory and Kevin close behind. Status report, Alan demanded as he took his place in the captain's chair. The vessels are maintaining their course toward us. Carol Martinez replied from the tactical station. No signs of weapons charging, but they're moving in a formation that suggests military precision. They'll reach our position in approximately 12 minutes. Have the Zorans made any moves? Alan asked. Their defense fleet is mobilizing, but they're keeping their distance. They seem to be waiting to see what we do. Alan turned to Kevin, who was already working at his communications station. Mr. Wright, any progress on those Voidwalker frequencies? Kevin nodded without looking up from his console. I've prepared a greeting message based on the Zoran records. It's ready to transmit on the frequencies they historically used. Do it, Alan ordered. Kevin pressed a sequence of controls, sending the message into space. For several long minutes, there was no response. The bridge crew watched anxiously as the three vessels continued their approach. They're slowing down, Carol reported suddenly. They've dropped out of formation and are taking up positions around us. Still no weapon signatures, but they're definitely interested in the Invictus. Captain, Kevin called out. I'm receiving a transmission. It's on the exact frequency we transmitted on, but using a more complex modulation. Can you decode it? Kevin worked frantically at his console. Working on it. The structure is similar to the historical records, but more evolved, as if their language has developed over the centuries. Gregory, who had been analyzing sensor data at the science station, suddenly straightened. Captain, I've completed a detailed scan of the nearest vessel. Their hull composition matches the Voidwalker artifact we saw on Talaris, but their technology appears to be more advanced, and there's something else. He paused, checking his readings again. I'm detecting life signs that are remarkably similar to human biosignatures, though with some notable differences. Similar how? Alan asked. Their genetic structure appears to be a highly evolved version of what we saw in the Zoran records, Gregory explained. If I had to speculate, I'd say they've undergone significant genetic engineering over the centuries, but the base template is unmistakably related to humanity. Kevin's console lit up with a successful decryption notification. Captain, I've broken through their communication protocol. The message is coming through now. A deep, resonant voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language none of them recognized, yet which contained elements that seemed strangely familiar to human ears. The ship's computer worked to translate, and gradually words became comprehensible. Attention, vessel of unknown origin. You broadcast on sacred frequencies. Your energy signature matches the ancestral pattern. Identify yourselves and state your purpose in this system. Alan nodded to Kevin to open a return channel. This is Commander Alan Whitfield of the Earthship Invictus. We are explorers from the planet Earth in the Sol system. We come in peace and seek knowledge of those you call the ancestors. There was a long pause before the reply came. Earth vessel. Your genetic scan reveals unexpected patterns. Stand by for further communication. The minutes stretched out as they waited. Carol kept her hands hovering over the tactical controls, ready for any sudden moves from the Voidwalker ships. Patricia Daniels arrived on the bridge, having rushed up from engineering. Captain, she reported, our engines are showing some kind of resonance effect with those vessels. It's as if they're scanning our propulsion system. Before Alan could respond, Kevin's console signaled another incoming transmission. They're hailing us again, sir. The same voice returned, but now with a tone that almost sounded shocked. Earth vessel Invictus. Our scans confirm what our sensors initially detected. You carry within you the unaltered genetic legacy of the progenitors. This is unexpected. After so many cycles to find the pure strain surviving, Alan leaned forward in his chair. I don't understand. Who are the progenitors? Those who came before us. Those who we the Voidborn once were, the voice replied. Before the Great Alteration. Before we changed ourselves to survive what hunts us. Gregory moved closer to the captain's chair. Captain, I think they're saying that humans and these Voidborn, as they call themselves, share a common ancestry. They've modified themselves genetically, while humans have remained relatively unchanged. Alan considered this for a moment. Why did you flee your territories 700 years ago? He asked. The Zorans have records of your departure. The response came more quickly this time. The Devourer awakened in the galactic core. We were not strong enough to fight it, even with our advanced technology. We scattered across the stars hiding, changing ourselves to avoid detection. A group of our ancestors sought refuge in your solar system, finding a compatible species to merge with and preserve our genetic legacy, while hiding from the Devourer's sensors. These Voidwalkers, or Voidborn, interbred with ancient humans, Gregory whispered to Alan. That would explain the genetic similarities and why our technology accidentally mimics theirs. We've been carrying their knowledge in our DNA, expressing it unconsciously in our technological development. On the view screen, the 3 Voidborn vessels suddenly began to move, pulling away from the Invictus and accelerating rapidly. Captain, Carol called out. They're retreating at maximum speed. Why? Alan demanded. Mr. Wright asked them why they're leaving. Kevin transmitted the question, but the response was fragmented as the ships moved farther away. Danger. Energy signature too strong. Will attract. Must hide. They're running from us now? Alan was confused. What could make them afraid of the Invictus? Gregory had returned to his science station and was reviewing the sensor data. Captain, I think I understand. Our ship's energy signature is similar to theirs, but much stronger and unshielded. We're not just using their technology. We've accidentally improved upon it. And whatever this devourer is that they're hiding from, they believe our energy signature will attract it. Alan's communicator chirped, and Admiral Susan Palmer's voice came through. Commander Whitfield, we've received your data burst about the Voidwalkers. This connection to humanity is significant. Your new orders are to pursue those vessels and establish proper contact. We need to understand this shared heritage and any potential threat this devourer might pose to Earth. As the communication ended, Patricia stepped forward from her engineering console. Captain, I've been analyzing the data from our interaction with the Voidborn ships. I believe I can enhance our engines further, building on the resonance effect we observed. We could potentially match or even exceed their speed. Alan nodded. Do it, Chief. Lieutenant Martinez set a pursuit course as soon as Engineer Daniels completes her modifications. What about the Zorans? Kevin asked. Shouldn't we inform them of what's happening? Send them a brief message explaining that we're pursuing the Voidborn to learn more about our shared history, Alan decided. Assure them we'll return to continue diplomatic relations. As the crew prepared the ship for pursuit, Gregory approached Alan with a troubled expression. Captain, there's something we should consider. If the Voidborn have been running and hiding for 7 centuries from this devourer, and they're terrified that our energy signature will attract it, perhaps we should proceed with extreme caution. Alan looked out at the stars visible on the view screen, thinking about the implications of what they had discovered. Humanity was not just taking its first steps into the galaxy. It was unknowingly carrying the legacy of an ancient, advanced civilization in its very DNA. The Invictus, designed to protect Earth from potential threats, had instead revealed humanity's connection to a species that had once dominated this sector of space and was now running in fear from something even more powerful. Your concern is noted, Doctor, Alan said finally, but we need answers. Whatever this devourer is, if it's a threat to the Voidborn, it could eventually become a threat to Earth. Better to understand it now than be taken by surprise later. Patricia's voice came over the ship's communication system. Engineering to bridge. Modifications complete. Our engines are now operating at 120% of their designed capacity. Alan settled back into the captain's chair, his decision made. Helm, set course to follow the Voidborn ships. Maximum speed. Let's find out where they're going and what they're running from. As the Invictus's powerful engines engaged, pushing the ship forward at unprecedented speed, Alan couldn't help but wonder what other secrets about humanity's past and potential future awaited them among the stars. The ship that had been built to protect Earth from alien threats had instead revealed that humans themselves might carry alien heritage. And now that same ship was pursuing beings who shared their ancestral DNA, beings who had looked upon the mighty Invictus and chosen to flee rather than face whatever might be attracted to its power.